Warning, do not watch this alone. What you about to hear is not some old pirate legend you've heard 1,000 times. This is a real treasure, and everyone who has tried to claim it has paid a terrible price. You see, some treasures aren't meant to be found, they are meant to wait, and they have guardians who ensure they do. In the heart of Ayutthaya, Thailand, there's an ancient temple ruin known as Wat Ratchaborana. If you visit today as a tourist, it looks silent, peaceful, even a little sad. The stone structures are collapsed, weathered by centuries of sun and rain. It looks dead, but deep beneath the surface, there is a burial chamber, a crypt filled to the brim with gold, priceless royal artifacts, and sacred offerings intended for the dead. And according to the locals, the dead never left. For centuries, this treasure lay undisturbed, a secret kept by the earth itself. It was a king's ransom, meant to accompany royalty into the afterlife. But like all secrets, it couldn't stay hidden forever. And when it was finally discovered, it brought with it something ancient and terrifying. It all started in the 1950s. A group of looters, driven by rumors and greed, managed to break into the sealed underground crypt. What they found down there in the darkness was beyond their wildest dreams. It was real. Solid gold crowns, heavy with history, sacred jewelry that glittered in their torchlight, royal swords, and countless objects that hadn't been touched by human hands for centuries. They thought they had struck it rich. They thought their lives were about to change forever. And they were right, just not in the way they expected. The moment the first piece of treasure was removed from its resting place, something changed. Witnesses who were nearby later said the very air inside the temple grounds became heavy, oppressive. It was as if something ancient and powerful had been awakened from a long sleep. The temperature dropped, and a silence fell over the ruins that was deeper and more profound than before. The spirits of the tomb were stirring. Just days after the heist, the consequences began to unfold. One of the thieves, a man who had been perfectly normal before, reportedly started acting strangely. He became withdrawn, speaking to no one, his eyes darting around as if watching something only he could see. Then, he started laughing to himself at odd hours. His family was terrified. Soon after, he was seen dancing erratically in the streets. A grotesque, jerky dance, all while screaming that someone without a head was watching him. A headless figure was following him everywhere. He could never explain what he saw, his words dissolving into panicked shouts. He was eventually committed to a mental asylum, his mind shattered. The locals whispered among themselves, nodding knowingly. The guardian had noticed him. The curse had claimed its first victim. This wasn't just a ghost story to them. Ancient Thai folklore speaks of a specific entity known as Pusam Phaussap. This isn't a typical ghost, and it's not a demon. It's something else entirely. A watcher. A spirit specifically assigned by ancient magic to protect buried treasures, and its methods of protection are ruthless. Over the years, eyewitnesses near the Wat Ratchaborana ruins have claimed to see things that defy explanation, especially at night. A headless figure, dressed in ancient armor, walking silently among the stones. The clink of armor without a body inside it. The sound of heavy footsteps on the gravel. But when you look, there's no source. Legend says that those foolish or brave enough to follow the figure, hoping it would lead them to more treasure, were never seen again. They simply vanished, swallowed by the darkness and the temple's curse. The guardian, Pusam Phaussap, does not bargain. It only protects. After the original theft, the cursed artifacts began to slowly resurface. They appeared in antique shops and on the black market, sold by people who had no idea what they were handling. But a strange pattern quickly emerged. Every single shop that sold one of these artifacts from the crypt soon met with disaster. The owners found themselves plagued by misfortune. Some shops mysteriously burned to the ground overnight, with investigators unable to find a cause. Other owners simply vanished without a trace, leaving their businesses and families behind. It was as if the treasure itself was toxic, bringing ruin to anyone who profited from it. The curse was spreading, reaching out from the temple grounds, and into the modern world. And this, believe it or not, was only the beginning. The story of what happened next is even more chilling. We'll continue this story in the next part, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. The curse of Wat Ratchabarana is far from over. Thanks for watching. We're not talking about pirates and maps. We're talking about ancient ruins, restless spirits, and a fortune that might just cost you your soul. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a warning. Imagine, deep in the jungle, a forgotten temple complex, older than recorded history. For centuries, it lay hidden, protected by dense vegetation and local legends. But in the 1960s, a construction project accidentally unearthed it, and with it, a treasure beyond belief. We're talking about chests overflowing with gold jewelry, intricate statues, and weapons crafted from precious metals. It was a discovery that should have rewritten history books. Instead, it unleashed a nightmare. The initial discovery was chaotic. Workers, local villagers, and eventually, opportunistic treasure hunters swarmed the site. It was a foro gold artifacts were pocketed, statues were hauled away, and ancient tombs were desecrated. The government tried to intervene, sending in archaeological teams and authorities to secure the area. They managed to recover some of the priceless artifacts, which are now displayed in museums, silent witnesses to a forgotten kingdom. But many pieces, perhaps the most valuable ones, vanished into the black market, disappearing into private collections around the world. But here's where the story takes a terrifying turn. The villagers who lived nearby, the very people who first laid hands on the gold, began to notice something deeply unsettling. The treasure, it seemed, didn't want to be owned. It wanted to return. This is the legend of the moving treasure. Locals who had managed to hide pieces of the treasure would swear that the artifacts moved on their own. A golden bracelet left on a table would be found back in the bag it was carried in. A small statue would reappear near the door, as if trying to leave. The most chilling accounts came from those who tried to rebury their loot for safekeeping. They would dig a hole, place the treasure inside, and cover it up, marking the spot carefully. But when they returned the next morning, they'd find an empty pit. The soil would be freshly turned, but the treasure would be gone. Sometimes, their own digging tools, left behind by accident, would be buried in the rearranged earth. It was as if an unseen force was undoing their work, reclaiming what was stolen. Even more unnerving were the sounds. At night, a strange rhythmic digging could be heard, echoing from the direction of the ruins. Scrape, scrape, thud, scrape, scrape, thud. But whenever anyone dared to investigate, armed with flashlights and courage, they found nothing. Just the silent jungle, the crumbling stones, and the overwhelming feeling that they were not alone. The air would be heavy, cold, and the silence that followed the phantom digging was somehow more terrifying than the noise itself. The phenomena weren't just limited to the treasure itself. Soon, the people living in the villages closest to the temple began to experience horrifying nightly visitations. It started with an epidemic of sleep paralysis. Night after night, people would wake up, completely unable to move, their bodies pinned to their beds. They'd report a crushing weight on their chest, making it impossible to breathe, impossible to scream. It felt like being buried alive. And as they lay there, helpless and terrified, they would see him. The descriptions were shockingly consistent. A figure stood at the foot of their bed, silhouetted against the darkness. It was the shape of a warrior, tall and broad, dressed in ancient armor, but it had no head. This headless guardian would just stand there, watching, a silent, menacing presence in the room. Some of the victims, after the paralysis finally released its grip, would find strange bruises on their bodies, faint but unmistakable handprints on their arms, their legs, their chests. It was as if the phantom warrior had physically held them down. Over the years, the allure of the remaining treasure proved too strong for some to resist. Despite the terrifying local legends, modern treasure hunters, armed with sophisticated equipment like metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and video cameras, would occasionally sneak into the restricted archaeological site. There are several well-known stories, passed down in hushed tones, of groups who went in, full of confidence, and never came out. In one infamous case, a team of 4 explorers illegally entered the ruins. They had everything: GPS devices, climbing gear, powerful lights. They were documenting their entire expedition on camera. A few weeks after they were reported missing, park rangers found their campsite, abandoned in a hurry. Tents were still up, food was left out, and all of their expensive equipment was neatly piled near the entrance to one of the main tombs. The cameras, the metal detectors, everything. But of the 4 explorers, there was no trace. The footage from their cameras was recovered, but it cut out abruptly, mid-expedition. The last few frames showed them lowering a camera into a newly discovered chamber. Then, just static. Local villagers refused to even entertain the idea of searching for the missing. They believe they know what happened. Once the sun sets, the ruins belong to the spirits. The monks from a nearby monastery visit the site regularly, not to appease the spirits, but to strengthen them. They chant, leave offerings, and perform blessings. They say the spirits guarding the temple are not evil or angry in the way we understand it. They are protectors. They are fulfilling a sacred, eternal duty. So, what is the final truth behind this haunted treasure? Why does it seem to fight back against anyone who tries to possess it? The answer lies in its original purpose. This treasure wasn't a king's personal wealth, stored for a rainy day. It was a funerary offering. Each piece of gold, every weapon, every statue, was buried with the dead for a specific reason. It was meant to accompany the souls of the noble and the brave into the afterlife. This treasure was never meant to enrich the living. It was an offering, a boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. It was a seal, and it was a warning. The headless warrior, the moving artifacts, the phantom digging, it's all part of a spiritual security system designed to protect the sanctity of the grave. Those who cross that boundary, who try to steal what was given to the dead, aren't just committing a crime, they are breaking a sacred pact, and their punishment isn't prison. Their punishment is to be erased, their names and faces remembered only by the silent, watching stones of the temple. So, the next time you hear a story about a lost treasure, remember this one. Remember that some gold costs more than money. Some treasures don't make you rich. They make you disappear. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the darkness. If you want more stories that will keep you up at night, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Every tale is a new nightmare waiting for you.